Good morning, everyone. This is Milka. How has everyone been? So, I'm coming to you direct from Uganda, Africa. I'm sitting on my balcony. It's a beautiful morning. It's about like 7 a.m. Yeah, I came on a mini business trip slash vacation with my kids. So this is the Airbnb where we're staying at. Yeah, it's really beautiful. The sun is rising. Yeah, it's about to be a beautiful day, blessed day. Yeah, so I've been trying to come out and make this video. I think it's part 2 of the last video that I made talking about my home birth story and what transpired after I gave birth to my son. Yeah, so I think where I left off, I was talking about right before I arrived to the hospital. I didn't even go back to review the old video, but if I can remember, I had went all the way up to telling you guys how I had given birth to my son at home. You know, I gave birth to him successfully. My husband was there to help me. I had to give you a little recap. My husband was there to help me. Yeah, my husband is the one who assisted me in giving birth to my son. We were in our bathroom at home in our little apartment. Yeah, so everything went well. So you can go back and view the previous video to get, you know, another recap or more in depth about, you know, yeah. That's my other son, he just woke up. We had to get more in depth about what happened, what transpired. So yeah, I know the story was so deep and I didn't want to make the video, that other video, long. So I was like, you know what, let me make another part. And it's been so many months, like 3 months since I made that other video. I've just been so busy, you know, with raising the children and my family and work and business and just everything. But, you know, today I woke up, I'm like, you know what, this is the day I'm gonna make this, you know, this other part about what happened. So I had pushed out my son and we were in the bedroom with my husband. So I was like, okay, the baby came out. I was on my hands and knees in the bathroom. My son, you know, I delivered my son. My husband catched him from behind. So we quickly, you know, he quickly wrapped him in a towel, squeezed all the water or mucus out from his nostrils, from his mouth. The baby started crying. He cried a little bit, then he became fine. So I was like, okay, I got up from the floor and I was like, let's go to the bed. We laid out some towels on the bed. I sat on the bed. I started breastfeeding the baby. You know, I put the baby on my breast. He was trying to suck. Yeah, so I started breastfeeding him, relaxing a little bit. And then I was like to my husband, I'm like, okay, you know, we have to deliver the what? Yes, so I told my husband, I'm like, okay, I'm on the bed, I'm holding the baby. It's time to deliver the placenta. Yeah, so my husband aids me in that. We delivered the placenta. We wrap it up nicely, put it in a bag, put it to the side, and by then the baby is still attached to the placenta, to the umbilical cord. We didn't cut it right away. I was like, just wait, you know. So we wrap it up, you know, we put it to the side, the baby's still attached. So by then, my mother and my brother were in the living room or in another room outside of our bedroom. I had called my brother to come and stay with my other 2 sons because I didn't want them to, you know, get involved in that. You know, they were too young. You know, some mothers who deliver at home, you know, involve their kids, but I just thought they were too young to see me like that and see me in that state. They were not going to understand it. So they were in the other room with my brother and also my mother who came along with my brother, but I didn't know that she had come. I didn't know that she had come because we were having some issues with her because she didn't support my decision to have a home birth or even believe in me that I can do it. So we were having a lot of issues, which I'm not going to get into it right now about that, but we were having problems. We were having issues, and she didn't support me at all. Actually, she was trying to sabotage me in terms of that, but I don't want to get into that. So she was in the other room. So before I know it, there is the police and the ambulance came to my house, and I was like, who called the ambulance? And they were knocking on my door, and they were like, can we come in? And I was like, who called the ambulance? I'm like, who called the police? I was talking to my husband. I'm like, did you call the ambulance? Did you call the police? Back up. I'm going ahead of myself. I'm going way ahead of myself. So I'm going way ahead of myself. I'm skipping parts. So let me go back. So when I was I had left my brother in the other room with the kids, that's when my mother came in into my room, and I was shocked that she was there because I hadn't invited her. I had only invited my brother. I didn't invite her because I didn't want to. It's because she didn't support me, and she didn't even believe that I was going to be able to do it, but she invited herself to the home delivery. So she came in, and she was actually there witnessing when I was delivering my placenta. I was holding the baby. After I delivered the placenta, we put it in the bag. I think she went out, and then when she came back with ambulance men and policemen, and there was like so many of them, and I was like on my bed, completely naked, holding my baby. Still hadn't cleaned myself well properly down there because I had just given birth like not that long ago, and I had just delivered my placenta. So I wasn't clean, I was still in that state. I had just given birth, and there are like 4 or 5 policemen and paramedics just there looking at me. My legs were still spread open, I was like, get that out of my room. Get out of my room. I was like, close my door. Shut my door. Why are you standing there looking at me? Who called you? Who invited you into my home? Lo and behold, it was my mother who called them and invited them to come and force me to go to the hospital. She went against my wishes. She went against my plans. She went against everything I had planned to do. And she thought that she was in control of the entire situation. She wanted to control the entire situation. She wanted to control my home birth. She wanted to control everything that I was doing because, mind you, she was against me giving birth from home, and she never believed in me, never once believed in me. She was wreaking havoc, destruction, confusion, sowing seeds of doubt in me and my husband. Sowing seeds of doubt and confusion in me and my husband, creating chaos and just doing a bunch of things that didn't even make sense. She was doing a lot, but I was like, you know what? I had forgiven her, and I had overlooked that because I'm like, she never experienced this before, or she never saw me doing it before, and I don't really know if she ever experienced it before herself. So I was like, you know what? Everyone doubted me. Everyone was doubting me. Only few people supported me. My best friend and my husband, who also had some doubt. But even though through his doubt, he still supported my decision. Like, he still went through with supporting me and being there for me as I went through the process of trying to plan for my home birth. And the actual process of what? Giving birth to our son. Yeah, giving birth to our son. So he was there throughout everything, through, his fear, his doubts, and all that. He was there. But my mother, like, she was just like going on fear, going on disbelief, and she was letting all of that guide her, which had now turned into a series of events that led me into some trouble and some trauma that I faced after giving birth to my son, which I ended up getting into a situation that I was trying to avoid the whole time. I ended up getting into it, and even getting into it deeper than I thought. But all in all, I give all the glory back to the Most High, because I went through everything I went through so God can show me the grace and mercy that He has upon my life, and the strength that God wanted to instill in me and show me that I can overcome strongholds, I can overcome oppression, and I can overcome situations in my life that seem like overcomable. That's even a word. That seem like you can't overcome them. It seems like you can't win those battles that are happening. So when my son was born, it was very powerful. It was very powerful, I knew that his birth was something big and something powerful, and that he came to tell a story. He came to break misconceptions in my family. He just came to do something powerful in my immediate family, close family, and extended family. So yes, I was trying to prove a point, and he was also trying to prove a point. So we were just trying to break down barriers. And I wanted to show people that they can give birth at home, and that they can have courage and faith that they can have home births. And that they don't always have to go to the hospital to do what God has instilled in them and destined in them to do. So that's just my little inspirational story. So back to the story. There was a bunch of paramedics and a bunch of policemen at my door. So that, can we come in? Can we come in? And I'm like, no, you cannot come in. You need to give me my privacy. So they left, and then after some time, they brought in a woman paramedic, and then she's like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine, everything is fine. She's like, I think we should go to the hospital. I think you need to go, we need to check the baby. By then I was like coerced and forced to go, because there was a bunch of police and paramedics in my house, and they were like, you need to go to the hospital, we need to check the baby. Though the whole time I didn't plan that. I just wanted to be home with my baby and take care of him from home. And then when I felt well and ready to go to the hospital, I was gonna go. I was like, you know what, this is my first time giving birth at home. Let me just go. Let me just have them take me. And by that time I was like, I didn't want to get in trouble. I didn't want any situations to arise. So I got up, I put on my clothes, I wrapped my baby, and then they put me on a stretcher and took me out. And then I remember I was like upset with my mom, but I had no time for that. Like, to think about all that. I was tired, I was exhausted. I had just given birth. So I went into the hospital. My husband stayed at home with the children, and he was coming later. He was just getting them ready to go to bed, whatever. My brother and my mother were there, so I went in an ambulance with the baby. When I get to the hospital, the doctor was like, "Oh, how did you do this? And even, how could you do this?" And I'm like, "I just did. I just gave birth from home." You know, they started questioning me, acting like I did a crime. And by the way, I went to Lowell General Hospital in Lowell, Massachusetts. They were acting like I did a crime. They were acting all strange with me. You know, the doctor kept on being in disbelief that I gave birth from home. And for me, I was like, don't people always give birth from home? Like, this thing should be common. But I guess it's not common around that region or that area, you know, where I'm from. So, I don't know. So then they started accusing me that, I was putting the baby at risk, that I could have put the baby at risk for complications. I'm like, no, he's fine. I had a healthy home birth delivery. The baby is 100% fine. There's nothing wrong with him. So time passed when they were like, okay, we want to cut the umbilical cord. And I was like, no, not yet. And they also got upset with that too. They were acting all strange and angry that I was denying certain things for them to do on me and the baby. So time passed when I left the emergency room, because at first they started me in the emergency room, and then I got a room up and in labor and delivery. So I went up to labor and delivery, and that's when, you know, I started doing the care, labor and delivery care. The doctor came up and she was like, oh, okay, everything's fine. You know, we ran tests on you and the baby. You know, they checked me, they checked the baby, like, everything is fine. You guys can go home after like 2 to 3 days. And I'm like, okay, that's great. You know, time passed. You know, they did the thing, you know, what they do in the hospital, the tests, whatever, the checks. They were trying to vaccinate the baby, and I was like, no, you're not going to vaccinate the baby. They became upset with that too. They were upset with that. They didn't like that. They didn't like that I gave birth at home. They didn't like that I didn't want to cut off my baby's umbilical cord when they wanted to. But eventually I cut it, like after hours, just hours after I spent some hours in the hospital. I cut it, the umbilical cord. I had them cut it. And they were also upset that I wanted to keep the placenta. I wanted to keep the placenta. So, I told them to put it in the fridge, in the hospital fridge. They were upset about that. And they were also upset that I didn't want to vaccinate the baby. So when the third day came, I was like, oh, hey, doctor, like, everything is fine. I wanted to go home. And then she's like, well, we wanted to run another test on the baby. It's a test to see if he has drugs in his system. At first I was like, you know what, doctor, you guys have been running a bunch of tests. I'm tired. I want to go home. I don't want you running any more tests. I just want to go home. But at that time I was annoyed. Like, first of all, I didn't plan to be there. I didn't want to be there. I was forced into going there. And then I was like, you know what, let me just go, because if I don't, a situation might arise. But at that time, I'm like, you know what, I did my time in the hospital. I did what I had to do. I just want to go home now and be with the baby. And that's the end of it. So then before I know it, that was around like very late at night when I was telling the doctor, I'm like, I'm tired. I want to go home. I think it was around like, I think almost 9. Around midnight, almost 1 a.m., the Department of Children and Families of Massachusetts, DCF, came into my hospital room. And then, prior to that, the doctor was like, oh, Miss Saboa, first of all, you gave birth from home, which it's not illegal, but you could have put the baby at potential risk. You've been denying some tests and also vaccinations, and we're just worried that you are neglecting the baby, blah, blah, blah. There's been some neglect there. We ran tests on you and we saw that you were, like they were saying that, I guess my water had broke, and they were concerned that I was leaking fluids, which could have, prior to giving birth to my baby, and they were concerned that it could have caused infection in the baby, which it didn't. I'm like, yeah, some people's water breaks right away like a gush, and some leaks slowly over time, which mine did both, but the baby didn't get an infection. They were accusing me that I could have put the baby at a potential risk. They're accusing me that I didn't want to vaccinate the baby, and also the home birth, and also that I was denying some tests because I was like, I want to go home. I didn't want to do any of the last tests. I was tired. So they were like, we're concerned that you're neglecting the baby, so we called DCF. So around midnight, 1 a.m., DCF came up into my hospital room and started questioning me and telling me that you have been reported for neglect because you are refusing vaccination and certain tests on the baby. I'm like, no, it's not illegal in Massachusetts. It's not illegal in Massachusetts to refuse vaccination for your children, so you can't use that as a reason to why you're here. What's reason number 2 why you're here? We're concerned that you are neglecting your baby because you put them at risk when you give birth to them at home. Home birth is also not a reason to why you're here, because home birth is also legal in Massachusetts. Why are you here? Okay, you're denying the baby tests. I'm like, okay, I'll do the test. So the DCF left that day around like 2 a.m. and the doctor came in and collected a feces sample to test my son to see if he had drugs in his system. And DCF left and went to my house. I think they got to my house around 6 a.m. They started knocking on my door, waking up my children, waking up my husband, asking my husband if they can enter my house and see my children, my boys, because they were concerned about neglect. This is when things started getting crazy. How can you come and accuse me of neglect because I gave birth from home? I'm denying vaccinations and certain tests. Not all the tests, certain tests. And then on top of it, you're going to my house. You have already started harassing my family at 6 o'clock in the morning, accusing me of neglect. You had no base. You're trying to build up a case on nothing. On me. I have no history of neglect, no history of abuse, no history of ever being in jail, clean record. So now all of a sudden, I'm neglecting all my kids out of the blue. Is that because you want to punish me because I gave birth from home? Time passed. The doctor came back with the results. And she's like, yeah, we found traces of drugs in your son's system. And honestly, to tell you guys the truth, like, I forgot the name of the drug that they say that they found traces of in my son's system, but all I can remember that it was a street drug. And then the doctor was like, we found traces of that drug in your son's system. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't do drugs. I don't do drugs. But the one thing I can remember is when I was talking to my family and friends, they were like, oh, if you had taken, like, eaten nuts, there's some certain nuts that you eat that when you get tested for drugs, it has like some chemical compound in there. It's like maybe the same chemical compound that's like found in that drug. If I'm saying this right, I'm not sure that when you're tested for drugs, like, it can pick up on that and it can test negative if you eat some certain nuts. And I remember prior to giving birth to my son, yeah, I was eating nuts. I had gone to the mall with my husband and we ate ice cream and other things, and I had eaten nuts. So I'm thinking that maybe like traces of that, I don't know. They were accusing me of doing drugs and passing it on to my son. And then they then decided saying, you can't go home. Not that I can't go home, I'm sorry. They're like, since we found traces of drugs in your son's system, he can't go home. He has to stay here for a week because we have to monitor him for withdrawal. We have to monitor him to see if he goes through withdrawal. And if he's going through withdrawal, we want to treat him. And I'm like, I don't take drugs. I don't know what you found in your fake tests. My son doesn't have no drugs in his system. You're just trying to bring up fake results, keep me in the hospital longer so you can charge my insurance company because you didn't get a check because I didn't give birth from the hospital. I gave birth from home. You're mad that here is a black woman who lives in a white town who gave birth from home, so you want to punish me. You want to build some fake smear campaign case against me. You want to take away my child. You want to pin DCF against me. You're feeling some type of way. You're racially discriminating against me. All those white and Asian nurses from Lower General Hospital, y'all are very racist and discriminatory. So where was I? They were saying that my son has drugs in his system and they want to monitor him for what? For going through withdrawal. They're like, you can take him out of the hospital, but you can go home if you want. If you want to go home and bathe, if you want to go home and pick up things, you can go home. We'll watch him. I was like, listen, I'm not keeping my baby here with y'all. Crazy. You're accusing me of doing drugs. So the doctors and the nurses, and there was this one particular extremely racist social worker who kept on coming into my room, accusing me of doing drugs, accusing me of neglect, accused me of a bunch of things, didn't know me from nowhere. They were torturing me in that hospital with their verbal, medical garbage, speaking to me, speaking down to me, using medical terms or political language. And I hate when they do that because it's like, say it direct, you think I'm a junkie. You think I'm a junkie who probably gave birth to that baby by accident, and you think I was high while giving birth. No, sweetheart. Then they're like, we're taking the sample to a laboratory in Boston, and they're gonna do further tests on it to see if really that your son has drugs in his system, because they were testing his feces, his poop. So they had to do further tests, more in-depth tests. So until those test results come back, you can't leave the hospital. So I stayed in the hospital with my baby for 1 week. I had to stay there for 7 days. I never left his side. I never left him. DCF kept on coming, questioning me, accusing me, and then they opened up a case against me, a DCF case against me for neglect. They couldn't open up a case against me for neglect because I gave birth from home, because that's legal. They couldn't open up a case against me for refusing vaccination because that's legal. Also, denying tests is also legal. So they had nothing to build a case on me. So the doctor created something fake saying that they found traces of drugs in my son's system. So even though they hadn't confirmed for sure that there was really drugs, because what? They had to run further tests. They had to run further tests to see if really there was drugs. So before those results came in, they were already accusing me of neglect and abuse. Sorry, just neglect. I'm like, how can you accuse me of neglect on something that you haven't gotten the test results back for? These results that you have are not, that even the doctor herself and the social worker were like, these are not the real results. These are just the results that we did at the hospital. We need a more in-depth results, which we're sending to the lab in Boston. So DCF now built a case against me for neglect based on results from the hospital that were not even the real results, and they were waiting for the actual results within a week. So I'm like, you can't build a case of neglect on me on something that you don't have the results for. And that's what I kept on telling them. But they were so eager, so invested in building a case of neglect against me. They had nothing on me, but they just wanted to punish me for what? For giving birth at home. Because they were feeling some type of way about that. They were feeling some type of way about that. I don't know if it was jealousy, envy. I don't know if it was about money. I don't know if the hospital had the intention of keeping me longer than I was supposed to be there because my son was 100% healthy. Besides the fake drug test that they gave him, everything else, there was nothing wrong with him. He was 100% healthy, breastfeeding well, very well. Also me, there was nothing wrong with me. I had no reason to be there. But I think maybe they wanted to charge my insurance company because they couldn't charge what? For me, they couldn't charge my insurance company because I didn't give birth at the hospital. I gave birth from home. That's my personal That's what I think. It was all about money. It was all about money, them keeping me there, and them also keeping me there because they wanted to have some level of control. They wanted to prove that they have control over me and they have control over the situation, though I gave birth from home. So I stayed in the hospital for 7 days. Eventually, time came. DCF kept on visiting me almost every single day, questioning me and harassing me. The 7th day came, I left. I was like, there's nothing going on here, I left. Then they were like, okay, you can leave. We didn't see any signs of withdrawal from your son. I'm like, of course, you're not gonna see any signs of withdrawal in my son, in my baby, because I didn't take any drugs. By the time also my husband was like, this is totally ridiculous. Me and him were fighting a battle, you know, because not only was DCF harassing me in the hospital, they were harassing my husband and my children at home. They were coming between the hospital and my house, harassing me and harassing my entire family, harassing my baby, harassing my children, and harassing my husband. So me and my husband were really fighting a battle because they had to keep the kids at home as I stayed in the hospital and also try to come and see me here and there to make sure that me and the baby are safe. Yeah, so we had to do a lot to protect our family while I was in the hospital being harassed by DCF, who was low-key also trying to kidnap my baby because they kept on telling me, go home and we'll keep the baby for you as you go home and do it. I'm like, no. As soon as I leave this hospital and I try to go home to do other things and I leave my baby with you, never. I stayed with my baby the entire time until they discharged us from the hospital. When they discharged us from the hospital, they gave me a piece of paper, and after I forget, it was either 14 days or it was either 2 weeks. I think it was like 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. I then had to go to Boston to receive the test results. There was so much going on. When I look back, it's been like a year and a half now. I get confused. The test results had come back like a week after I went home, and they were negative. Negative. And then they were also saying that, okay, my son might have some deafness in the ear. That's why I had to go to Boston to run other test results on his hearing, which also came out negative. But the test results for the drugs in his system came to me a week after I had gone home, and they were 100% negative. He had no drugs in his system. Therefore, if he had no drugs in his system, I had no drugs in my system. So everything was for nothing. And then DCF built a case against me, and they were like, we're going to start coming to your house once a month for 6 months. I'm like, for what? The test results that you say you're building a case on because you're accusing me of taking drugs, and you're saying that my son might have had potential drugs in his system, and therefore I was neglecting him. Not because I gave home. You said it wasn't because I gave birth from home. You said it wasn't because I was denying him vaccinations. You said you're building a case upon the reason that the doctors had found potential drugs in my son's system. The test results have come back 100% negative. What are you building your case on now? Why are you coming to my home to visit me on a neglect case? What neglect? Everything came out negative. So that's part 3. Part 3 of, because this video is already longer than it's supposed to be. It's deep. It gets deeper, and I'll leave that for another day. Yeah, but I went home with the baby, and then I started a DCF battle. But that will be part 3, guys. I just want to say thank you for listening to me. God willing, I can come out with part 3 of that story sooner than later. But for now, I just pray grace and mercy and peace and love and joy and wisdom, knowledge, understanding be with all of you all the days of your life. Thank you for listening to me and supporting me. And yeah, I hope to share this story to encourage some other women who go through home births, who go through DCF battles, and who go through generally just challenges as mothers in life when they're trying to do what? The best thing, what they think is the best thing for their children, and they get pushed back from family, society, and community. But nonetheless, they go through with what they know is best for their children. I want to encourage mothers and fathers and families. So I wish everyone well. As for me, I'm going to have a good sunny African morning. I wish you all well. I love you all. Peace.